This is Ghoulish, a podcast with Max, a host. That was terrible, but I'm gonna leave it in. Hello, folks. Welcome to my show. As I just said, I am Max Booth, a host, and this is my podcast, Ghoulish. On the program today, I am talking to my good pal, Jay Wilburn. He's been on the show multiple times in the past, so I don't have much else to say about him. I have nothing really to introduce him with. It's just, you know Jay. Jay's been around the block. Is that the right expression? I don't know. I don't know. Today, Jay and I are talking about Grossout contests, which is basically a thing that happens at certain conventions. Well, people, they stand up and try to gross out the audience. Jay has won a gross out contest 2 years in a row. So I had him come on today's episode and kind of explain to everybody listening what a gross out contest is. And then have him proceed to read both of the stories he's written to win these gross out contests. So I guess this is the disclaimer I need to add. This is a gross episode, so if you don't want to listen to some gross stuff, maybe skip this one. It goes into some places. I hope you are ready, because I'm not gonna wait around until you get prepared. I'm gonna go on into the episode now. Okay? Is that okay? That's what I'm gonna do. That's what I'm gonna do. So today we're going to talk about gross out contests. So for anyone listening who has no idea what that means, can you explain it?
Yeah, there's probably better people who could explain it, but you got me. So in terms of format, as a performer, you have 3 minutes to tell your story, and then at the end of 3 minutes, the audience decides whether you need to stop or whether they want to hear the rest of the story, and then you got 2 more minutes after that. In terms of the history of it, I'm not sure how far back it goes. I remember it from the World Horror Convention. I didn't really go to them that much back then, but I knew they existed. And eventually it was revived by KillerCon and is active there now. It kind of comes from sort of that there's a lot of conventions that would have extreme horror writers and erotica writers, but they would have their readings late at night. So that was pretty common at conventions, and I think that was part of what had the Gross Out contest going. BizarroCon has the Ultimate Bizarro Showdown, and kind of early in that history, there was a lot of gross out element to it, although there's been some conflict with that recently, where the audience got a little more sensitive to that, and so they're like revamping where that's not really a part of it anymore. I know that Brian Keene was the first one that introduced props into it, so like one of the years he won early on, he had started using props, and then that kind of became fairly common for a while.
Do you know what prop he used?
I can't remember the story. I know that other authors have used like fake blood and fake gore and
okay. So
pudding and stuff. And
you mean like items and stuff like that?
Yeah,
I thought you were talking about propaganda. My bad.
No. Oh. Doing shout outs to his friends, giving them props. I know that Stephen Kozanowski won in 2018 in the KillerCon one, and he won at another one somewhere else that same year. So I'm not sure if he used the same story or not, but
Is
he
that
won
cheating?
two different places.
That
I don't
seems.
think so.
I feel like once you read it once, you have to never talk about it again.
I don't know. That may be like one of those unwritten rules of baseball or something that nobody actually follows.
Now, this has nothing to do with baseball, does it?
I don't know. Baseball can be pretty gross.
I agree. Have you played baseball before?
Not well.
Gross. Uh, now, what exactly do you win?
In 2019, I got this like drum head that was signed by the judges and people. So like John Skip signed it and Bev Vincent. I should have gotten more of like the big name guys that were there to sign it. Ed Lee signed it
Did
and a
you
couple
say
things like that.
Did you say a drum kit?
A drum head, like the
Oh,
head of a drum.
okay.
So like during the awards and stuff, they did like a drum roll when they were announcing the people, and that everybody signed that drum, and so it says Grossout 2019 champion. And I got signed drumsticks too, and one a book that was signed by several people.
I don't know if I would be able to sign a drumstick.
They had a pretty sharp marker, so they all did it.
It's not enough room.
I don't know. I'll send you a picture later.
I don't want you to. That's okay.
Okay.
So you've won twice in a row now.
Yeah,
That's
the
something.
2021 that just happened was online. Um, and ironically, I don't know that I was going to KillerCon that year if the pandemic hadn't happened. I was like looking at conventions, and it was right on top of a couple of others, so I was debating whether to even go or not. But once it was online, I was able to join back in again. So we all just kind of were in that Zoom meeting for the KillerCon convention, and then I won the Gross Out contest again this year.
Now I did not watch the gross out contest online this year because I had little things to do, and I
Right,
thought,
right,
why would I want to do that? And I didn't, and I'm glad I didn't because I had things to do, Jay. But you
right,
won, and that's
right.
awesome. Now, did you watch the closing ceremonies?
No, I didn't. I didn't get that on Sunday.
So you have no idea what was said about you?
No.
So it's kind of funny because Wrath James White, who did the closing ceremonies, he was he was saying his congratulations about everybody who won the Splattlpunk awards, and then he said, "Oh yeah, before I forget, congratulations to Max Booth III for winning the Gross Out contest twice in a row."
Did you really say that?
He did.
Oh man.
And everybody in the chat was trying to correct him, but he was not reading, so he never corrected himself. So
Well, that pretty much sums up my career right there.
he said it
That's the
twice.
whole thing. Oh, well, I did use your name in the story, so it probably stuck in his head.
Maybe I
Maybe
don't
he
know.
thinks I'm Max Booth III, like he doesn't actually realize we're two different people or something.
That would be interesting, and I don't want to explore that concept any further because I don't want to change my pants right now. So I have no idea what you read on the second gross out contest. I'm gonna find out because you, for some reason, agreed to come on Ghoulish and read both of your gross out contest entries to the audience.
That is correct.
Now, how do we want to do this? Am I gonna like stop you at 3 minutes?
No, no. just let me finish. I've earned my time now.
Okay. Now, should I let you go uninterrupted? Like I shouldn't ask you questions as you read this?
I guess you can do whatever you want. It's your show. They're not long stories, so
I think it would
I
be
can I
good.
can get through the whole thing.
I think it would be good just to let you go. I'm gonna mute my mic. So go ahead and read the one you read in 2019.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So diving in, it's a little weird because I'm used to like the hand gestures and the performance and all that, but I have it in front of me because has been a year since I've done it. But I'll do my best to put the emotion back into it. So this has a title which I didn't tell at the time, but it's called "Every Foreign Object Extracted from My Dick" by J. Wilburn. All right. Unlike the other bullshit you've heard here tonight, this story I'm about to tell you is 100% true, and it includes every foreign object ever extracted from my dick. When I got a kidney transplant, they put two lines into me, one through a neck artery into my heart, and the other, as thick as my finger, into my dick. I was asleep when they put it in. I was not asleep when they took it out. After 3 days, the inside of my dick was all dry and raw and stuck to the plastic. There was blood crusted around the head, gluing me to the tube. No real way to pick that scab before they ripcorded my dick. They took out the heart line first. The nurse says, take a deep breath and bear down because this can send a shock to your heart. So I bared down and nothing. It wasn't that bad. Now, it was an artery, so I was bleeding down my chest a little, but they got gauze on it and everything was fine. It was the same instruction for the dick rip. There was no breath deep enough to brace for that shit. I felt a shock from my heart down to my asshole. Then they needed me to pee, and I'm pissing all pink and syrupy, and it feels like I'm passing razor blades and alcohol. 3 days later, it's time to remove the stent between my bladder and the new kidney. Once again, back up the cock. This time, we need a flexible metal like drain snake thing with a scope and a metal grabbing claw on the end. And he's trying to force that thing into my dick hole, and it will not go. Then, on top of everything else, he shames me. He says, the hole's not big enough. I'm going to need to widen it. They have a tool for that. It's like a pair of needle nose pliers, but longer and sharper, so they can fit it into tiny dick holes like mine. And he's twisting it and really Mapplethorping that thing into place. Then he starts stretching like he's doing reps at the fucking gym. Now, I'm a pretty vanilla guy, so I don't know how many of you have ever tried to open a pair of needle nose pliers inside your dick before, but it's kind of a ripping pain. After he's satisfied with the renovations he's made to my cock, he sends the metal snake up, punches into my bladder, then he claws onto the stent, and he asks me, are you ready? The fuck difference does it make if I'm ready or not at that point? So he says, take a deep breath and bear down. He chainsaw cranks that thing out of me all in one. Now, I don't want to be one of those guys that brags about my giant pee hole, but every time I take a piss now, you know those adjustable shower heads, the kind your girlfriend uses when she's tired of your shit? When I piss, it's like it's turned up all the way to full body fire hose setting. Now, they're trying to get my dick to stop bleeding because it wasn't bleeding when I went in there, and they're dabbing it with every cloth in the room. The place is starting to look like they're going to call my wife in to tell her that they tried everything they could. Eventually, I gave up and just put my clothes on because sometimes in life, you just got to hold your head high and walk out of there with your bloody dick.
Wow. That was something, huh?
Yeah. Do you think it still holds up after a year?
I think so. I laughed several times, but I had my mic muted, so I guess you thought I was just not listening.
No, I knew you were laughing. I know my powers.
That's what it sounds like when I laugh. Now, I was in attendance when you read this in 2019, and for folks who don't know, you actually had your penis out the entire time while reading.
No, I didn't. Not after BizarroCon.
So, what was the reaction like when you read this?
Well, that was my first time doing a Grossout contest. I never really considered it my thing, even though I'd kind of written some extreme horror, and I was actually nominated for short story that year. But I never attended them because it just wasn't really, I didn't really consider that my kind of humor and stuff. But that same year, there'd been this big controversy at BizarroCon, and I'd come out pretty publicly about like defending free speech and things like that. And so I figured if I was defending this practice, these Grossout contests, that I really should, put my money where my mouth is and actually participate in one. And I was pretty impressed. Like a lot of the stories, not even the ones that placed, but just a lot of stories that year were done by some really good authors. And even though it was like, all this shit and piss and cum humor and all that kind of stuff, the stories were actually pretty sophisticated, like well written and entertaining, and you could tell there was skill behind them and that kind of stuff. So I really didn't expect to win. I was just trying not to make a fool out of myself.
Were you nervous to get up and read something of that type of content?
Not the content. I was nervous because of the format.
Yeah.
Because I know people have kind of mellowed out a little bit over the years, so they're not quite as mean as they used to be. But I know in past years they would like boo people off the stage even before like the 3-minute mark. So I think I put a lot of extra effort into like making a lot of punch to the story. because I didn't want that to happen. So like I was very particular about every line um, being sharp, and then keeping it short. And I also wanted to keep it short because I wanted to memorize it. I thought there was more to that, and a lot of authors weren't doing that. But I think it added a little bit of confidence. And then again, this year I decided to stay under the 3 minute mark too, because I didn't want to give the audience an opportunity to decide whether to let me keep going or not. And
That's a
I,
good plan. To
yeah,
just
and I think there's a lot of power behind that too. It makes it easier to memorize for one thing, but I think the gross out contests are like closer to like stand up comedy than they are really to a reading.
agreed. Yeah,
And so and I also think there's more power, even though like the gross has to be in there, obviously. I think there's more power in the humor than there is in the gross, because the problem with writing an extreme horror story with that audience, and it's the same problem with the gross out contest as it is with the actual writing, is that audience is pretty braced for the gross stuff. Like they're expecting it, they've heard it all. There's only so many ways you can go. There's blood and gore. There's shit stories. There's dead bodies. There's things that you can do, but there's only so many categories, and so you can still shock people, but you're probably not going to surprise them very much. But and especially when they're braced for it, like they came there wanting that, so it's going to be hard to get to the audience that wants it. But like I don't think anybody can brace against humor. So like a person goes to a comedy show, they want to laugh. So it's not like they're daring you to gross them out or whatever. So even when you're braced for comedy, you'll still laugh out loud when you hear it. So I think even though you need to really have some punch in there for a couple gross things, I think it's really a focus on the comedy more than the gross, I think.
I think if I got booed off a stage, I would cry.
Even now.
Yeah. What do you mean even now?
Well, I mean, you've done a lot of performances, and you do some kind of experimental out there kind of things
Yeah,
with some of the things you've done.
if they booed me, I would cry.
Oh, okay.
I've bombed a few times. Well, I thought that reading didn't land like I wanted to. Well,
Right.
I made a joke once that I think is still pretty good, but the audience was really confused. I was doing like an opening monologue about movie reboots and how it wasn't such a bad thing to remake a movie, and I went into this long explanation about how I thought it would be great to reboot the Zapruder film.
Oh God.
And I just like they just looked at me, lots of crickets. Someone whispered to someone else, "What's the Zapruder film?" So it just wasn't the right audience. But I
No,
still stand by that idea. It's about time, don't you think, Jay?
no. I think the president always deserves our respect. That's what I think.
I'm just talking about a movie. I don't know what you're talking
Yeah,
about.
yeah, sure you are.
I do love practical effects too. So no CGI. Anyway, so for folks who don't know, I mean, that story you read is all based on facts, correct?
Yes, yes. Everything in it is true. Obviously, I embellished like some of the description a little bit, but there's no actual physical act that did not occur, essentially the way it was said. So yeah, it was a true story.
Now, going into the second one, again, I don't know what the content is at all. Is this also a true event?
I tell it like it's true, but the only thing that's true about it is that I have seen you naked before.
Do you want to get into what you mean by that?
Oh, we could just let it hang. Well, I flew all the way to Texas to see Max naked. I didn't know at the time that's what I was doing, but we were going to Worldcon, and your significant other picked me up and drove me to your house, and she had this big glittery poster because I'd made a joke about wanting to have a big poster to be able to find her in the airport. So we get to your house, and I just walk into your bedroom with the poster like I'm welcoming you to your own house. And it turns out you'd had a night shift, so you were sound asleep, and then you woke up and kind of gave this startled cry that scared me too. But then you were also naked, which was kind of secondary at that point. And I got out of the room.
Last time I ever slept nude.
Is it really? I hate that
Yeah,
I messed that up for you.
you traumatized me. Okay, let's get into the second reading.
All right. The next one, again, I didn't say the title, but it's Meant to Be Divided by Jay Wilburn. All right. When Max Booth III and I first met, he tried to get me to join a cult. We were both dating the same stripper at the time, and she invited us to an unmasking ceremony at the Holy Church of the Divide. We get there, and everyone is naked, and the guy kneeling in the middle is holding a knife. Now, I should have known something was up because Max was naked when he drove us there, but he's always pulling crazy shit like that. The ceremony begins with the guy in the middle lifting his balls and tracing the knife along his taint like he's unzipping himself to the red meat. What the hell, I say. Max says, "Shh, be cool, we're guests here." The dude slices through his scrotum, purple testicles fall free, dangling from lumpy yellow cords. Then he starts up his dick. "Oh, God, what's happening?" I say. Max says, "Dude, please, don't embarrass me in front of our girlfriend." Meanwhile, the dick is stretching like a noodle on the tip of the knife. The head splits perfectly through the ridge. It folds open like a flower. Now I expected to see veins in there, but there's all this twisted up fiber like overcooked spaghetti. Then he started up his happy trail. He had this umbilical hernia that stuck out all bruised and fat. It burst like a grape. It leaked out this waxy fluid like the juice inside an old ketchup bottle. And the pinched bowel opened up this raw sewage aroma into a room that already kind of smelled like ass. Then he divided himself between the ribs. "How is he not dead?" I asked. "Stop being so judgmental," Max says. "This is why I hate taking you places." The knife goes deep through skin, muscle, yellow fat, up his chest, shears through the bone like nothing, slices clean between the larynx, but the guy cutting himself is still talking about holy symmetry and God's design for us all to be divided and unmasked. "Max, I want to go home." "I want you to go home too, you wet blanket." The guy cuts through his palate, down the line of his tongue, up the center of his face, into his brain. Then he unmasks himself into something more than human. I got the fuck out of there. I didn't have a car because Max drove, but at least I still had my clothes on. The stripper, she broke up with both of us, and Max is still pissed at me about that. Now I've been thinking, maybe I should attend at least one more meeting of the Holy Church of the Divide before I decide whether to join or not. Now I don't believe in all their beliefs, but in these divided times, we can all use something to believe in. You know what I mean?
Wow, of all the readings to miss, I missed the one about me.
It was kind of cool. I got to share it with you now.
What made you decide to include me in this?
Well, I wanted it to be like it's told like a true story. Also, there's enough people there who know you that I thought they would think it was funny. And I started like right after I won, and in 2019, I'd kind of been rolling around ideas for the next one because I at least didn't want to embarrass myself after winning the year before. I didn't know if I would win again, but I wanted to at least do really well.
So you've spent
And
the
so,
last 12 months doing nothing but writing this story.
not solid. The first version I did of it was told like a true story, but it wasn't really funny. It was just told like I'd walked in on this horrible scene or whatever. And then I was kind of trying to figure out how to change it around, and I realized I kind of needed a foil, like another person who would act like this was normal, and then I'm the one freaking out. And so I kind of picked you as sort of that foil to not understand why I was freaked out.
I don't think you represented me accurately at all. I don't think any of that is true or would be true, and I think I have to email my attorney now.
All right.
Yeah. What do you plan on doing next year?
I don't know, man. I've been told that once you win three times, you're retired. Like you can't ever do it again. So I think that'd be great to win three times in a row and then never be able to do another Grossout contest again, except to be a judge or something.
I think once you told me that you practiced this reading, well, at least the one from 2019 in front of your wife. Is that true?
No, no,
No?
she's never heard any of that. She still doesn't know what I've said.
Oh, okay.
Even when she knows because I've had to reread this thing a few times, like now and
Yeah.
for the Splatter Club and then of course I was practicing it in the office because I wanted to memorize it. But anytime I'm doing that, she leaves the room. Like the office attaches to the bedroom. She won't even stay in the bedroom with the door closed. Like as soon as she hears like there's this like she's heard me talk like I'm doing interviews and stuff before, but when she hears the tone of like a reading type thing, she leaves the room. She won't even. She wants to be at least two closed doors away from me doing that.
I don't blame them. Has anyone from your social circle held these readings?
I think a few have. It's mostly the other authors, and then like just fans in the extreme horror groups and stuff that kind of go in on that. I advertise it pretty widely when I'm going to do the reread or something, but I don't think very many of my normal human friends.
Do you take much pleasure in grossing someone out?
I like doing well. There's I figured out the tricks that I think work to kind of stand out in that crowd. I think it's good to memorize it so you're not looking down at a page. There's a huge difference between a person, even when you read well, it's different than when you're speaking the words from memory, like you're performing on a stage. And I do think it's more performance than it is reading. Um, I've really put way more thought into this than I ought to, but that's how you become a champion, I guess.
Please, do you have any other advice or
Yeah,
tips? Go into it.
I do think it's wise to stay under the 3 minutes. I don't think there's any problem with going further because there's one theory that like okay, if the audience decides they want to hear more, then they like what you've done, and that'll influence the judges. But at the same time, you're splitting up the reading, so uh, you have to stop and then restart. So do you restart exactly where you stopped, or do you go back and repeat yourself? And it breaks the flow a little bit.
Yeah,
And
you
then
lose the momentum.
and then like if you imagine like great performers, whether it's politicians, giving a speech at a rally, or it's a stand-up comedian, you can't imagine them like talking for 3 minutes and then stopping and deciding to let the audience decide whether they can keep going or not. Like all those people like do well by holding on to the power themselves. So I wanted to stay under the 3 minutes so that it wasn't the audience deciding whether I can go on. It's me deciding when I'm done with them. And so I think that portrays a lot more power. Like I come in loud and um, in their faces, and then I stop before they get a chance to decide whether they like it or not. And I don't know that you gain much from those extra 2 minutes. Like anything that you could say in the first 3 minutes, I don't know that there's anything new that you're going to add with 2 more minutes that's going to make a difference. And like people aren't going to remember the details the more you talk, and especially after that split, it's almost like they'll forget part of the beginning and then the ending is all you got. And so like going short like that, I have a couple key punches in there and I've cut out all the extra fluff and there's no setup. There's no detail about the characters, nothing like that. And I think the audience remembers more of the good lines when it's a shorter piece.
Now, you haven't added any props to these readings yet. What's going on with that? How come you don't like props?
Uh, Again, I think it's a choice, and it goes back to that idea of the audience you got. There's no prop that you're going to be able to add that's better than like what they can do in a movie. So like the blood is not going to look better. Like the gross thing you're eating is not going to look better. It's always going to look like some high school performance and probably not even that good. So like the props are fine, and probably when they were a novelty, they were more effective. Um, but I almost think like it was kind of weird doing the reading as an audio because I rely on the hand gestures a lot. And even as I was reading, like I didn't realize I was doing it, but I was still doing the hand gestures like I'd done in the performance because I learned them like blocking. And there's some power in that because you're kind of taking over the audience's imagination. So like what you're describing and kind of how you're doing the hand motions forces them to create a mental picture, and their mental picture is going to be worse than like anything you could do practical. Just because, especially if they're into this sort of genre, they filled their brain with all these images on their own. And so, like, you kind of utilize their well of knowledge instead of some, as best you can do practical effect. So I think there's been some strength. There were a lot of props in 2019. In the 2021, with it online and in their houses and stuff, nobody really did any prop stuff. Most people were just reading from a page. Uh, but I think there's power in that idea of like forcing them to make the picture for themselves.
I agree. Have you considered taking this show on the road? Like a
No.
comedian? I mean, can you imagine that? A white man talking about his penis on a stage? I think that's what America needs right now.
Well, maybe, if I may have taken writing as far as it can go. Maybe it's time to do some really poorly thought out stand-up comedy.
Yeah.
Only 3-minute sets and then get the hell out of there.
It would be odd to tell like multiple stories of things that have happened to your dick in a row. So I guess you have to leave after 3 minutes. Well, after 3 minutes, you just stop and go, "Well, audience, should I continue?"
Now, after I'm retired, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm going to have to go to like bootleg conventions and do the Grossout contest there or something. I'm not sure what the.
Oh, I thought you meant conventions about bootlegging, like
No,
alcohol.
no, no. Like I'll have to go to like the Czech Republic and do illegal Grossout contests over there and stuff when I'm no longer allowed to perform in the United States.
That sounds like a plan. How can folks find you online?
All right, I'm at jwilburn.com, and you can buy books directly from me there. I'm also on Twitch at twitch.tv/jwilburn, so I do some readings, and sometimes I'll write a story like just from scratch on there. That's something new I'm going to try, and through it as I'm writing through. Usually those aren't very long because it's a bit challenging. I also will do readings and editing and stuff on there, and I also play Minecraft on there some, so that I can appeal to some audience that's there naturally. I'm also on Twitter at Among the Zombies, and you can find me on Facebook at my name too.
Yeah. Now, do you have a TikTok yet? Or no, not yet.
No, I'm gonna wait and see if they're gonna shut it
How,
down, but then maybe after that.
how long is a TikTok video supposed to be? 3 minutes? If
I
so,
don't know.
I think you could
I've seen
fucking
some of the like do my gross out TikToks and stuff.
yeah.
I've seen some of them on YouTube, and I can't tell how long they're supposed to be. Some of them are really short, and then some of them are like they're like doing a short pitch for a movie or something.
I'm not positive how to access TikTok. Is it a website? Is it an app? I don't know.
Um, I've just seen the compilation videos on YouTube. Some I haven't
Are you getting a
anything
fax?
else. Do what?
Are you getting a fax?
I think somebody's printing it here, so I don't know who it is. I don't know if it's my kid or if my wife forgot I'm doing this or something. Can you hear that?
Yeah.
All right.
Well, this has been an episode. Thanks, Jay.
Thanks, man.
All right, end of episode. Alright, that's been Ghoulish. I am Max Booth, host, and if you enjoyed tonight's episode, why don't you go on over to iTunes, rate and review the program. Support us on Patreon at patreon.com/PMM Publishing. Buy a book at perpetualpublishing.com. Stand Alone by Paul Michael Anderson is coming really, really soon. Thrill on the Video by Michael David Wilson is already out. Go pick it up. My own book, We Need to Do Something, a novella about a bathroom, is out now. My novel, Touch the Night, a book about small towns and police corruption, is out now through Cemetery Dance. Go get all these spooky books and have a spooky good time, ladies and gentlemen, ghouls and fools. And live spooky, die spooky.
Live spooky, die spooky.